My in-laws tricked me into giving up my house, then kicked me out after my wife cheated. Hey, before we move on to the video, please subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. Thanks. I didn't grow up with much. My parents worked themselves into the ground to give me and my sister a decent life, but we were always one car breakdown away from disaster. So I learned early on to be careful, save money, and never depend on anyone else to clean up my messes. By 28, I'd done something most people in my position hadn't. I bought a modest 2-bedroom house in a quiet, affordable neighborhood. It wasn't flashy. No granite countertops or backyard pool. Just a place that was mine. I worked full-time in IT and picked up freelance gigs on the side to afford the mortgage. It took everything I had to pull it off, but I did it without co-signers, without help. Just sweat and a willingness to eat frozen burritos 5 days a week. Then I met Emily. She was different from anyone I dated before. Bubbly, polished, full of energy. She came from a wealthier background. Her dad was a retired CFO. Her mom ran some local charity. They had a vacation home in Cape May and a dog that wore a cashmere sweater. I fell out of place at first, but Emily never made me feel small. At least, not in the beginning. She told me she liked that I was grounded, that I didn't come from money, that I knew what hard work meant. And maybe she meant it then. We dated for a year before getting engaged. She moved into my house during that time, and although she hinted now and then about how we'd upgrade someday, she never pushed it too hard. That all changed when we got married. Suddenly, her parents were a daily presence. Her mom, Diane, would drop by unannounced just to check on the place and leave subtle jabs. With a little renovation, this place could be really nice. Her dad, Walter, once asked me if I considered selling and getting into something respectable. I laughed at first, thinking it was a joke. It wasn't. Emily started joining in after a while. "Wouldn't it be smarter to put the house in both our names?" she asked one night over dinner. "It's already our home," I said. "What difference would it make?" She rolled her eyes. "It's just weird to tell people I live in my husband's house. Makes me sound like a guest." I didn't love the idea, but I understood where she was coming from. I figured, okay, this is my wife. We're a team now. What's mine is hers. So I had a lawyer help me draw up a quitclaim deed to add her name to the title. Simple enough. We filed it together. She seemed genuinely happy about it. That should have been the end of it. But a few months later, her dad brings up a family trust. Over dinner at their place, glass of wine in hand, Walter leans back in his overpriced leather chair and says, "Son, if you're smart, you'll think long-term. Probate is a nightmare. You should think about putting the property into a trust." I was skeptical. A trust? Yeah, we set one up years ago. Emily's on it. We can protect the house from taxes, lawsuits, whatever. It's completely above board. Emily chimed in, all smiles. "It's just easier, babe. It's how my family handles assets. You don't want to leave me stuck in court if something happens to you, right?" I nodded, unsure but trusting. I didn't have family money. I didn't know how these things worked. They sent over papers, thick, complicated documents, and we had a meeting with their family attorney, someone I'd never met before. I should have brought my own lawyer, but I didn't want to seem paranoid. The trust was under their family name, but Emily and I were both listed as beneficiaries. Her parents would be managers of the trust. Again, I asked questions. They downplayed everything. "It's just paperwork. You're still living there. Nothing changes." So I signed. Looking back, I can't believe how blind I was. I didn't lose the house that day, but I signed the first nail into its coffin. At first, things were normal, maybe even better. Emily and I traveled. She decorated the house, and I got a promotion at work. For a while, I thought, this is it. This is what building a life with someone looks like. But slowly, cracks began to show. Emily stopped inviting me to outings with her friends. When I'd ask who she was texting, she'd get cagey. She picked up late-night work meetings that ran past midnight. I chalked it up to stress. We were both busy. I tried to reconnect, plan a weekend getaway, cook dinner, asked to try couples therapy. She brushed it all off, said I was being dramatic. Then, her parents started showing up constantly. Walter would walk around our house like he owned it. Diane would criticize the furniture or make offhand comments like, "Once you two upgrade, We can finally have proper holidays. I laughed them off, but Emily never corrected them. One night, I came home and found Diane measuring the living room walls. "What are you doing?" "Oh," she said, "we're just thinking about options. This place has so much potential. Maybe knock down this wall, open the space up." "We?" She smiled like I was the dense one. "Of course. Emily didn't tell you." I confronted Emily that night. She told me to stop making a big deal out of everything, and that her parents were just trying to help. Help with what, though? We were barely speaking by that point. She slept with her phone under her pillow, left early, came home late. And the worst part was, I still wanted to fix it. I still believed we could get back to how things were. I didn't know it yet, but I was living on borrowed time. I had no idea what they had planned, how far they were willing to go. I was about to find out just how badly someone you love can gut you, slowly, methodically, and legally. I don't know when I stopped recognizing the woman I married. It didn't happen overnight. It was a slow, suffocating shift, like water dripping into your walls for months until one day the ceiling caves in. And by then, it's too late. At first, it was just little things. Emily became dismissive. I'd talk about my day, and she'd nod while scrolling on her phone. If I asked her to make time to eat dinner together, she'd sigh like I was a burden. She had endless energy for brunches, for her coworkers, for her parents. But when it came to me, she was always too tired. I told myself she was just stressed. Maybe things would ease up after the fiscal year ended. Maybe she needed space. I didn't want to be that husband, the jealous, paranoid one. So I backed off. I gave her room. I trusted her. Big mistake. It started becoming obvious she was keeping secrets. I'd wake up in the middle of the night and find her in the bathroom with the door locked, whispering into her phone. When I'd ask who she was talking to, she'd snap. "Why are you so controlling?" One night, I got home early and caught her on a video call. She didn't hear me come in. She was laughing, really laughing, the kind of laugh I hadn't heard from her in months. She was glowing. It wasn't for me. I didn't say anything then. I just stood there in the hallway, unseen, listening to my own heart sink like a rock. That's the exact moment I knew. I didn't need to see the messages or the photos or catch them in the act. I knew. Still, I tried to deny it, tried to give her the benefit of the doubt. But a few weeks later, I found the proof I couldn't unsee. She left her laptop open, carelessly, maybe intentionally, and there it was, a long string of messages with a man named Gavin. The conversation was flirty, detailed, and explicit. They talked about nights they'd spent together. Inside jokes I didn't understand. How he gave her the excitement I never could. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, numb, reading message after message until the words stopped meaning anything. When she came home that night, I asked her directly, "Are you seeing someone else?" She didn't deny it, didn't flinch, just stared at me cold and said, "Maybe if you hadn't made our lives so boring, I wouldn't have needed to." That hurt more than the cheating. She packed a bag and said she was going to stay with her parents for a while. Just pure contempt, like I was some failed experiment she was done pretending to like. Within 48 hours, her parents were calling me. No, lecturing me. Diane left a voicemail saying I had emotionally neglected her daughter and that Emily was finally reclaiming her happiness. Walter sent me an email saying it was best if we made this separation permanent and minimized conflict for Emily's sake. They talked like I was the problem, like I'd done something monstrous by asking for honesty in my own marriage. I should have lawyered up right then. I should have realized something worse was coming. But I was too stunned, too hurt, too focused on trying to make sense of what just happened. For the next week, I lived in a fog. I still went to work, still paid the bills, still fed the damn cat. I kept thinking, she'll come to her senses. She'll realize what she's throwing away. We can fix this. But instead, something else showed up. An official letter from a property management firm I'd never heard of. The letter said the current occupant, me, had 30 days to vacate the premises. Apparently, the property, my house, had been transferred to a family trust, and I was now a non-equitable tenant. I stared at the letter for over an hour, convinced it had to be a mistake. But it wasn't. I called the number on the letter and was told, flatly, like I was a stranger, that the trust, owned and managed by Diane and Walter, had decided not to renew my occupancy. I was no longer on the deed. I had no legal right to stay there. I hung up, heart racing, called Emily. She didn't answer. Texted her, "What the hell is this?" She replied with a single sentence. "You signed the papers, remember?" That's when it hit me. The trust, the documents, the family attorney. The entire thing was a setup. They'd slowly removed me from ownership under the guise of protection, planning, just paperwork. I'd handed over the house piece by piece, and by the time I realized it, they already had it. Emily's cheating was personal, but this was a heist. I wasn't just losing my marriage. I was being legally robbed by the people who'd smiled in my face at Thanksgiving dinner. I tried to fight it. I really did. I called the lawyer who'd helped me draft the original quitclaim. He reviewed the trust documents and told me the truth. It was airtight. My name was on all the signatures. I'd given consent. I had no proof of duress, fraud, or coercion. I could sue, sure, but I'd be throwing tens of thousands into a losing battle. I reached out to friends. Some offered couches, some didn't know what to say. I couldn't go back to my parents. They'd passed away years earlier. My sister lived across the country and had a newborn. I was alone. Eventually, I moved out with what little dignity I had left. I packed everything I could into my hatchback, clothes, a few boxes of books, my laptop, and the cat. The rest? Furniture, appliances, heirlooms, all stay behind. Joint property, Emily said. Part of the trust. I spent 2 nights sleeping in a Walmart parking lot. On the 3rd night, I found a cheap room for rent on Craigslist. Mold on the windows, musty smell, shared bathroom with a chain-smoking roommate. It was all I could afford. I signed a lease with shaking hands. I had nothing left. No wife, no house, no justice. Just a job I could barely focus on and a deep, soul-rotting rage I didn't know what to do with. That was the lowest point in my life. But I wasn't done yet, because while they thought they'd broken me, I was about to show them just how dangerous it is to corner someone who's lost everything. It's funny how quickly the people you once trusted can turn you into a cautionary tale. After I moved into the dingy Craigslist room, I became a ghost. I worked, I ate, I slept. That was it. Every day felt like wading through wet cement. But underneath the numbness, something else was growing. Something hot, alive, and patient. Rage. Rage at Emily for cheating. Rage at Walter and Diane for engineering my eviction. Rage at myself for signing everything away. The trust documents were clean, legally binding, ironclad. I had no leverage. That's what the lawyer said. But I wasn't interested in legal. I wanted truth, exposure, accountability. I wanted to make them regret it. First, I went quiet. Disappeared completely. I blocked Emily, Diane, and Walter on everything. I didn't respond to their lawyer. Didn't tell anyone from our mutual circles what had really happened. They must have thought I was sulking in some motel or couch surfing, licking my wounds. Let them. They weren't counting on me rebuilding. They certainly weren't counting on me watching. I changed jobs first. Took a remote freelance IT gig with a startup. It paid better, gave me time and flexibility, and no one from my old life would hear about it. Then I signed up for free workshops on digital forensics, asset tracing, and, crucially, trust law loopholes. Most people don't realize how vulnerable they are when they get too confident. And Emily's parents were very confident. I also started a burner email under a fake name and joined local homeowners forums, public property record databases, and social groups they were part of. I wanted to understand the entire landscape of what they owned, controlled, and flaunted. I took screenshots. I saved files. I traced connections. Slowly, I began building a case. Then something interesting happened. About 8 months after I moved out, I got a message on a backup social account I hadn't touched in a while. It was from someone I barely knew, an old coworker of Emily's. Let's call her Rachel. "Hey, I know this is weird, but I thought you should know. Emily and Gavin broke up. It was messy. She said some things about you that didn't sit right with me. If you ever want to talk, I'm around." I met Rachel for coffee the next day. She was polite but cautious. Turned out, Emily had been running her mouth. After I left, she told anyone who asked that I couldn't handle real life, that I'd spiraled, that I'd abandoned her. She painted herself as the wrong party. Her coworkers believed it. Her friends believed it, but Gavin didn't. Not for long. Rachel said Emily and Gavin imploded after 4 months. She wanted him to move into my old house, the one her parents had stolen. Gavin was freaked out. He thought the whole trust setup was creepy. He started asking questions Emily didn't want to answer. Then he found the same messages I had, but worse. Apparently, Emily had been seeing multiple people, not just Gavin. Some of them even overlapped with our marriage. One guy was married. Another one was her co-worker's boyfriend. Gavin confronted her, and she exploded, told him he was just a rebound, accused him of being just as boring as me. He dumped her. Emily's life wasn't imploding yet, but it was cracking. Then Rachel dropped a bomb. Diane and Walter are trying to sell the house. I blinked. What? Yeah, there's a listing. It's private for now, but it's going live soon. That did it. I went home to my tiny roach-adjacent room and began working nonstop. I pulled every document I had from the trust deal. I traced the LLC that held the property title. And finally I found it. An error. A single, stupid clerical mistake. Walter had transferred the house into the family trust before my name was fully removed from the deed. They'd filed the quitclaim documents, but they hadn't waited for them to fully process and reflect with the county clerk. That meant the trust transfer technically included a property still co-owned by me. A procedural oversight, but one that, under state law, could be ground for contest of transfer. It was the crack I needed. I hired a real lawyer this time. Explained everything. Showed him my files, screenshots, dates. He told me it was a long shot, but possible, especially if paired with a civil suit for fraud, coercion, and wrongful eviction. So I filed. Emily and her parents were shocked. They tried to call. I didn't answer. They had their lawyer send me a settlement offer. I refused. It went public when I filed a complaint. I made sure of it. I knew people in the local real estate circle now. I'll let the right people know what happened. The story spread. Man signs over home to trust, gets evicted by in-laws after cheating wife leaves him. Reddit caught wind. So did a local news blog. Suddenly, the golden family image began to tarnish. The house sale stalled. Buyers pulled out. Their lawyer tried to fast-track a quiet dismissal of my case, but my lawyer pushed for discovery. We subpoenaed Emily's messages with her parents around the time of the trust signing. Some of them were damning. One of Diane's texts to Emily read, "Don't worry. Once it's in the trust, he won't be able to touch it. Let him pout. You're the one with a future." They didn't want that in court, so they offered me a deal. I'd get the house back, my name restored, a written apology, and they'd cover my legal fees if I signed a non-disclosure agreement and dropped the fraud complaint. I told them I'd think about it. Then I posted the story online. Not under my name, not directly traceable, but with enough detail to make sure everyone who mattered knew exactly who it was about. The backlash was swift. Emily lost her job. The firm didn't want the drama. Diane had to step down from her board positions. Walter? Some of his investors pulled out of his next venture. Their name was mud. I took the deal, but not for silence. I took it because it was mine, and because I knew by then their reputations were already gone. The first time I stepped back into the house, I had to stop in the doorway. Not because I was overwhelmed, not even because of the memories. I stopped because it didn't even feel like mine anymore. It was like walking into a stranger's mansion built on the ashes of your life. But that's what I was now. A stranger, one with a deed in his hand and a settlement check big enough to wipe away every unpaid legal bill, and then some. They left it furnished, exactly how I remembered. Same photos on the walls. Same dishes in the kitchen. A few were chipped. Some of my books had been thrown out. I found my guitar in the basement, warped from humidity. They hadn't even had the decency to box it. Still, I was home, and they were gone. Emily was living in a one-bedroom apartment across town. Word was she tried to crash with her parents after losing her job, but tensions were high. Between the fallout from the lawsuit, public embarrassment, and her now former co-workers finding out what really happened, she had burned just about every bridge she'd ever walked on. Walter and Diane, once so smug, were scrambling to keep their reputations afloat. Turns out when your legacy is tied to property, philanthropy, and business optics, it's hard to shake off a very public lawsuit for defrauding your son-in-law out of his house. I could have stopped there. I had the house, the money, the truth out in the open. But I didn't want to stop. I wanted closure, and I wanted them to know they didn't just lose. They lost to me. I started writing anonymously. Reddit, local real estate forums, even Medium. I told the full story, changed the names, the locations, but left in enough specifics that anyone close would recognize the truth. The story caught fire. A podcast picked it up. Then a YouTube channel made a dramatized version. I got hundreds of messages. People thanking me. People sharing similar stories. The best part? People who knew them started putting the pieces together. I got screenshots of old friends saying, "Wait, isn't that Emily and her parents? That lawyer sounds like the one Diane always brags about. Didn't Walter do something shady with a house years ago?" Their world kept shrinking. Mine kept expanding. I was invited to speak anonymously at a panel about housing fraud and legal protections in marriage. I wasn't an expert, but my story was the warning. I told people, never sign anything under pressure, and never trust a smile from someone holding a pen. My ex-wife and in-laws had built their lives on manipulation, and I tore it all down with their own words. Therapy helped. I'm not going to pretend it didn't. I needed someone to help me sort through the trauma, the betrayal, the guilt I still felt for not catching it sooner. For letting it happen, I started running, quit drinking, focused on work. I got a cat, not the old one. Emily kept him, of course, but a rescue I named Ghost. He liked to sit near the fireplace where the old family photos used to hang. I met new people, dated casually, nothing serious. I wasn't ready, and I knew that now. But I wasn't bitter. I wasn't broken. I was focused. I also hired a financial advisor and created my own trust, not to hide things, but to protect myself. If I ever did remarry, my future would be secure. And so would my kids if I ever had any. 3. One last message. About a year after I got the house back, I received a letter. Handwritten, no return address. It was from Emily. "I know you probably hate me. You have every reason to. I don't know why I did what I did. I thought I was trapped. I wanted excitement, but I didn't think it would all fall apart. I see now that I didn't just betray you. I destroyed myself, too. I hope someday you can forgive me, even if I don't deserve it. I'm sorry. I read it once. Then I burned it. Forgiveness isn't always about letting someone back into your life. Sometimes it's about releasing the weight from your own chest so you can breathe again. Emily didn't deserve me. Walter and Diane never did. But I deserve peace. And now I had it. 3 years later, I was hosting a small dinner in that same house, freshly painted, remodeled, mine in every sense. A friend of a friend walked in and said, "Wow, this place is beautiful. How'd you get it?" I smiled. You wouldn't believe me if I told you. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to the channel and hit the like button.